Book 22, the Odyssey, the killing of the suitors. The maids who have misconducted themselves are made to cleanse the cloisters and are then hanged. Then Odysseus tore off his rags and sprang onto the broad pavement with his bow and quiver full of arrows. He shed the arrows on the ground at his feet and said, "The mighty contest is at an end. I will now see whether Apollo will vouchsafe it to me to hit another mark which no man has yet hit." On this he aimed a deadly arrow at Antinoüs, who was about to take up a two-handled gold cup to drink his wine, and already had it in his hands. He had no thought of death, who amongst all the revellers would think that one man, however brave, would stand alone among so many and kill him. The arrow struck Antinous in the throat, and a point went clean through his neck, so that he fell over and cup dropped from his hand, while a thick stream of blood gushed from his nostrils. He kicked the table from him, and upset the things on it, so that the bread and roasted meats were all soiled as they fell over on the ground. The suitors were in an uproar when they saw that a man had been hit. They sprang in dismay, one and all of them, from their seats, and looked everywhere towards the walls, but there was neither shield nor spear, and they rebuked Odysseus very angrily. "Stranger," said they, "you shall pay for shooting people in this way. You shall see no other contest. You are a doomed man. He whom you have slain was the foremost youth in Ithaca, and the vulture shall devour you for having killed him." Thus they spoke, for they thought that he had killed Antinous by mistake, and did not perceive that death was hanging over the head of every one of them. But Odysseus glared at them and said, "Brave man who could prevent any member from getting in, but I know what I will do. I will bring you arms for the storeroom, for I am sure it is there that Odysseus and his son have put them." On the goatherd Melanthius went by back passages to the storeroom of Odysseus' house. There he chose 12 shields with as many helmets and spears, and brought them back as fast as he could to give them to the suitors. Odysseus' heart began to fail him when he saw the suitors putting on their armor and brandishing their spears. He saw the greatness of the danger and said to Telemachus, "Someone of the women inside is helping the suitors against us, or it may be Melanthius." Telemachus answered, "The fault, father, is mine and mine only. I left the storeroom door open, and they have kept a sharper lookout than I have. Go, Eumaeus, put the door to, and see whether it is one of the women who is doing this, or whether, as I suspect, it is Melanthius, the son of Dolius." Thus did they converse. Meanwhile, Melanthius was again going to the storeroom to fetch more armor, but the swineherd saw him and said to Odysseus, who was beside him, "Odysseus, noble son of Laertes, it is that scoundrel Melanthius, just as we suspected, who is going to the storeroom. Say, shall I kill him if I can get the better of him, or shall I bring him here that you may take your own revenge for all the many wrongs that he has done in your house?" Odysseus answered, "Telemachus, I will hold these suitors in check no matter what they do. Go back, both of you, and bind Melanthius' hands and feet behind him. Throw him into the storeroom and make the door fast behind you. Then fasten a noose around about his body and string him close up to the rafters from a high-bearing post that he may linger on in an agony." Thus did he speak, and they did even as he said. They went to the storeroom, which they entered before Melanthius saw them, for he was busy searching for arms in the innermost part of the room. So the two took their stand on either side of the door and waited. By and by Melanthius came out with a helmet in one hand and an old dry rotted shield in the other, which had been borne by Laertes when he was young, but which had been long since thrown aside, and the straps had become untuned. On this the two seized him, dragged him back by the hair, and threw him struggling to the ground. They bent his hands and feet well behind his back, and bound them tight to a painful bond as Odysseus had told them. Then they fastened a noose about his body and strung him up from a high pillar till he was close up to the rafters, and over him did you then vaunt. "O swineherd," Eumaeus said, "Melanthius, you will pass the night on a soft bed, as you deserve. You will know very well when morning comes from the streams of Oceanus, and it is time for you to be driving in your goats from the suitors to feast on." There then they left in a very cruel bondage, and having put on their armor, they closed the door behind them and went back to take their places by the side of Odysseus, whereon the four men stood in the cloister fierce and full of fury. Nevertheless, those who were in the body of the court were still both brave and many. Then Zeus's daughter Athena came up to them, having assumed the voice and form of Mentor. Odysseus was glad when he saw her, and said, "Mentor, lend me your help, and forget not your old comrade, nor the many good turns he has done you. Besides, you are my age mate." But all the time he felt sure it was Athena, and the suitors from the other side raised an uproar when they saw her. Aegelas was the first to reproach her. "Mentor," he cried, "do not let Odysseus beguile you in siding with him and fighting the suitors. This is what we will do when we have killed these people, father and son, and we will kill you too. You shall pay for it with your head, and when we have killed you, we will take all you have, indoors or out, and bring it onto a hodgepodge of Odysseus' property. We will not let your sons live in your house, nor your daughters, nor shall you widow continue to live in the city of Ithaca." This made Athena still more furious, so she scolded Odysseus very angrily. "Odysseus," said she, "your strength and prowess are no longer what they were when you fought for 9 long years among the Trojans about the noble lady Helen. You killed many a man in those days, and it was through your stratagem that Priam's city was taken. How comes it that you are so lamentably less valiant now that you are on your own ground, face to face with the suitors in your own house? Come on, my good fellow, stand by my side and see how Mentor, son of Alcinous, shall fight your foes and requite your kindness is conferred upon him." But she would not give him full victory as yet, for she wished still further to prove his own prowess and that of his brave son. So she flew up to one of the rafters on the roof of the cloister and sat upon it in the form of a swallow. Meanwhile, Aegelas, the son of Damastor, Eurymonus, Amphion, Demotopolis, Pisander, and Polybus' son, Polyhector, bore the brunt of the fight upon the suitor's side. Of all those who were still fighting for their lives, they were by far the most valiant, for the others had already fallen under the arrows of Odysseus. Aegelas shouted to them and said, "My friends, he will soon have to leave off, for Mentor has gone away after having done nothing for him but brag. They are standing at the doors in support. Do not aim at him at all once, but 6 of you throw your spears first, and see if you cannot cover yourselves with glory by killing him. When he was fallen, we need not be uneasy about the others." They threw their spears as he bade them, but Athena made them all of no effect. One hit the doorpost, another once against the door. The pointed shaft of another struck struck the wall as soon as they had avoided all the spears of the suitors. Odysseus said to his own men, "My friends, I should say we too had better let drive into the middle of them, or they will crown all that harm they have done us by killing us outright." They therefore aimed straight in front of them, and through their spears Odysseus killed Demoptolemus, Telemachus, Euryades, Eumaeus, Elatus, while the stockman killed Pisander. These all bit to dust, and as the others drew back in the corner, Odysseus and his men rushed forward and regained their spears by drawing them from the bodies of the dead. The suitors now aimed a second time, but again Athena made their weapons for the most part without effect. One hit a bearing post of the cloister, another against the door, while the pointed shaft of another struck the wall. Still, Amphimedon just took a piece of the top skin from off Telemachus' wrist, and Sisyphus managed to graze Eumaeus' shoulder. Odysseus and his men let drive into the crowd of suitors. Odysseus hit Eurydamas, Telemachus, Amphidon, and Eumaeus Polybus. After this, the stockman hit Sisyphus in the breast and taunted him, saying, "Foul-mouthed son of Polytherus, do not so foolishly as to talk wickedly another time, but let heaven direct your speech, for the gods are far stronger than men. I make you a present of this advice to repay you for the foot which you gave Odysseus when he was begging about in his own house." Thus spoke the stockman, and Odysseus struck the son of Damastor with a spear in close fight, while Telemachus hit Leocritus, son of Evenor in the belly, and the dart went clean through him, so that he fell forward, full on his face upon the ground. Then Athena, from her seat on the rafter, held up her deadly aegis, and the hearts of the suitors quailed. They fled to the other end of the court like a herd of cattle, maddened by the gadfly in the early summer, when the days are at their longest. As eagle-beaked crooked-taloned vultures from the mountains swoop down on the smaller birds that cower in flocks upon the ground, and kill them, for they cannot either fight or fly, and lookers-on enjoy the sport, even so did Odysseus and his men fall upon the suitors, and smite them on every side. They made a horrible groaning as their brains were being battered in, and the ground seethed with their blood. Leodes then caught the knees of Odysseus, and said, "Odysseus, I beseech you, have mercy upon me, and spare me. I never wronged any of the women in your house, either in word or deed, and I tried to stop the others. I saw them, but they would not listen, and now they are paying for their folly. I was their sacrificing priest. If you kill me, I shall die without having done anything to deserve it, and shall have got no thanks for all the good that I did." Odysseus looked sternly at him and answered, "If you were their sacrificing priest, you must have prayed many a time that it might be long before I got home again, that you might marry my wife and have children by her. Therefore you shall die." With these words he picked up the sword that Aegilas had dropped when he was being killed, and which was lying upon the ground. Then he struck Leodes on the back of his neck, so that his head fell rolling in the dust while he was yet speaking. The minstrel Phemos, son of Terpus, who had been forced by the suitors to sing them, now he tried to save his life. He was standing near towards the trapdoor, and held the lyre in his hand. He did not know whether to fly out of the cloister and sit down by the altar of Zeus that was in the outer court, and on which both Laertes and Odysseus had offered up the outer court thigh bones of a many an ox, or whether to go straight up to Odysseus and embrace his knees. But in the end he deemed it best to embrace Odysseus' knees, for so he laid his lyre on the ground between the mixing bowl and the silver-studded seat, and going up to Odysseus he caught hold of his knees and said, "Odysseus, I beseech you, you have mercy on me and spare me. You will be sorry for it afterwards if you kill a bard who can sing both for gods and men as I can. I make all my lays myself, and heaven visits me with every kind of inspiration. I would sing to you as though you were a god. Do not therefore be in such a hurry to cut my head off. Your own son, Telemachus, will tell you that I did not want to frequent your house and sing to the suitors after their meals, but they were too many and too strong for me, so they made me." Telemachus heard him and at once went up to his father. "Hold," he cried, "the man is guiltless. Do not him no hurt, and we will spare Medon too, who was also good to me when I was a boy, unless Philiotis or Eumaeus has already killed him, or he has fallen in your way when you were raging about the court." Medon caught these words of Telemachus, for he was crouching under a seat beneath which he had hidden by covering himself up with a freshly flayed heifer's hide. So he threw off the hide, went up to Telemachus, and laid hold of his knees. "Here I am, my dear sir," said he. "Stay your hand, therefore, and tell your father, or he will kill me in his rage against the suitors, for having wasted his substance, and been so foolishly disrespectful to yourself." Odysseus smiled at him and answered, "Fear not, Telemachus has saved your life, that you may know in future, and tell other people how greatly better deeds prosper than evil ones. Go therefore outside the cloisters into the outer court, and be out of the way of the slaughter, you in the barn, while I finish my work here inside." The pair went into the outer court as fast as they could, and sat down by Zeus's great altar, looking fearfully round, and still expecting that they would be killed. Then Odysseus searched the whole court carefully over, to see if anyone had managed to hide himself and was still living, but he found them all lying in the dust and weltering in their blood. They were like fishes, and fishermen have netted out to sea, and thrown upon the beach to lie gasping for water till the heat of the sun makes an end of them. Even so were the suitors lying all huddled up like one against the other. Then Odysseus said to Telemachus, "Call nurse Euryclea, I have something to say to her." Telemachus went and knocked at the door of the woman's room. "Make haste," said he, "you old woman who have been set all over other women in the house. Come outside, my father wishes to speak to you." When Euryclea heard this, she unfastened the door of the woman's room and came out, following Telemachus. She found Odysseus among the corpses, bespattered with blood, and filled like a lion that has just been devouring an ox, and his breast and both his cheeks are all bloody, so that he is fearful sight. Even so was Odysseus besmirched from head to foot with gore. When she saw all the corpses in such a quantity of blood, she was beginning to cry out for joy, for she saw that a great deed had been done. But Odysseus checked her. "Old woman," said he, "rejoice in silence, restrain yourself, and do not make any noise about it. It is an unholy thing to vaunt over dead men. Heaven's doom and their own evil deeds have brought these men to destruction, for they respected no man in the whole world, neither rich nor poor, who came near them, and they have come to a bad end as punishment for their wickedness and folly. Now, however, tell me which of the women in the house have disconnected themselves, and who are innocent." "I will tell you the truth, my son," answered Euryclea. "There are 50 women in the house whom we teach to do things such as carding wool, and also kinds of household work. Of these 12 in all have misbehaved, and have been wanting in respect to me, and also to Penelope. They showed no disrespect to Telemachus, for he has only lately grown, and his mother never permitted him to give orders to the female servants. But let me go upstairs and tell your wife all that has happened, for some god has been sending her to sleep." "Do not wake her yet," answered Odysseus, "but tell the women who have disconnected themselves to come to me." Euryclea left the cloister to tell the women and make them come to Odysseus, and in the meantime he called Telemachus, the stockman, the swineherd, began, said he, to remove the dead, and make the women help you. Then bid sponges and clean water to swill down the tables and seats. When you have thoroughly cleansed the whole cloisters, take the women into the space between the domed room and wall of the outer court, and run them through with your swords, till they are all quite dead. have forgotten all about love and the way which they used to lie in secret with the suitors. On this, the woman came down in body, weeping and wailing bitterly. First they carried the dead bodies out, and propped them up against one another in the gatehouse. Odysseus ordered them about, and made them do their work quickly, so they had to carry the bodies out. When they had done this, they cleaned up all the tables and seats of sponges and water, while Telemachus and the two others shoveled out their blood and dirt from the ground, and the woman carried it all away, and put it out of the doors. Then when they had made the whole place quite clean and orderly, they took the woman and out-hemmed them in the narrow space between the wall of the doomed room and that of the yard, so that they could not get away. And Telemachus said to the other two, I shall not let these women die a clean death, for they were insolent to me and my mother, and used to sleep with the suitors. So saying, he made a ship's cable fastened with the bearing post that supported the roof of the dome of the ruin, to carry it all around the building at a good height, lest any of the woman's feet should touch the ground. And as thrushes or doves beat against the net that has been set for them in the thicket, just as they are getting to their nest, and a terrible fate awaits them, even so the women have to put their heads in nooses one after the other, and die most miserably. Their feet moved convulsively for a while, but not for very long. As for Melanthius, they took him through the cloister into the inner court. There they cut off his nose and ears, and they drew out his vitals, and gave them to dogs raw. Then in their fury they cut off his hands and his feet. Then they had done, they washed their hands and feet and went back into the house, for all was now over. And Odysseus said to the dear old nurse Euryclea, bring me sulphur, which cleanses all pollution, and fetch fire, so that I may burn it, and purify the cloisters. Go, moreover, and tell Penelope to come here with her attendants, and also all the maidservants that are in the house. All that you have said is true, and answered Euryclea, but let me bring you some clean clothes, a shirt and cloak. Do not keep these rags on your back any longer, it is not right. First, light me a fire, replied Odysseus. She brought the fire and sulphur, and as had bidden her, and Odysseus thoroughly purified the cloisters in both the inner and outer courts. Then she went inside to call the women and tell them what had happened, whereon they came from their apartment with torches in their hands, and pressed round Odysseus to embrace him, kissing his head and shoulders, and taking hold of his hands, and made him feel as if he should like to weep, for he remembered every one of them.